Hi, everybody. Welcome to Conversations with Women Like Me. I'm Julie Fairhurst. I'm the founder of Women Like Me. It's a book series, and I'm here with one of our authors. She wrote in book number 5, Women Like Me from Lost to Living. And her title is, she's in chapter 7, if you want to find her. And her title is Returning to My Indigenous Culture Healed My Life. So it's a fabulous story. Our author is Colinda Laviolette, and she is here to just enlighten us as to what it was like for her growing up and dealing with the stresses that she had to deal with as well. A little bit about her. She is a speaker, writer, and has trained as a trauma therapist, working with both Western and Indigenous cultures and spiritual practices. She's been featured on CBC Radio, on various panels, and she's a contributor to Women Like Me community, Messages to My Younger Self. She's an avid podcast guest and presenter, and her most recent projects include writing a chapter for her book on her personal story. She's been elected to the board of directors for Courage in Action and conducting diversity and inclusive training on behalf of the Compassionate Inquiry. So welcome, Colinda. I'm so happy that you're here. Thank you for doing this for us.
Thank you, Julie, for having me.
Good. So why don't we start off by you telling me, why did you want to write your story?
I've actually thought of this for probably, most of my life, actually. I've always wanted to write. I've always had a huge love of books, and I've got tons of books everywhere. But the love of the books, and also as I got older and realizing and understanding a lot of the difficulties that I've gone through, and there's many women like me who've gone through similar things. And when I began to speak and share in groups and on radio and such, when I utilized those spaces to share where I was, what brought me to change my life and how I did that, I had many women, many people, even men, coming and asking, well, what made you decide to do that? And I've also been told by an author friend, a very good friend that I adore, and he's amazing in so many ways, that I had a story that needed to be told. And him being an author, he had said, one day I'm going to push you for that. I'm going to push you towards that. And he gave me that time and space, because when he first told me that, I had just had a new baby within that month. He said, I'll give you that time and space to connect, to bond, and do what you need to with your child as a mother. But no, one day when things settle, I'm coming. But then I found you first. And I thought, well, there's a perfect opportunity. And rather than writing a whole book, as much as I've wanted to do this for years, it seemed too hard. But now it was a chapter. And I thought, this gives me the opportunity and the experience to try that, to see if it is something I can actually do. And as you're aware, I did at one point think, okay, maybe I can't do this. Maybe it's too much. Maybe I've shared too much about myself.
Yeah.
And you were very supportive. I hugely appreciate that. Now it's out there, and I'm like, wow, I actually did that. I was able, and it wasn't as hard as I thought it would be.
Yeah. Yeah. It can be scary for people, because of course the book's out there. The book, I know that one of the writers actually told me the other day that somebody from Mexico contacted her. And I was taking a look to see where the books were selling, and we've sold a book, one anyway, but we've sold a book in Australia. So
nice.
I know, so we just don't know who's going to read them. But back to what you were saying about the little bit of fear, like it's in a book and it's out there and people are going to read it. I think it's a natural what you went through. I think it's very natural. Yeah. And
for a long time, for a majority of my life, I used to think and believe too that I was the only one. And having so many people come to me after I've shared and say the same thing, I thought it was only me, and I didn't know that I can bring myself out of that. And they'd have tears even hugging me and thanking me for sharing that and showing them. Other people have been there too. and we can and do overcome this. So to me,
Yeah.
that was sharing my story may be the key that somebody else needs for that piece of hope to give them that strength to
Oh,
possibly share theirs, or at least to begin to move forward.
absolutely. Oh, that's beautiful. Well, let's dive in then. One of the things that I found when I was writing, or when you were writing, when I was reading, that I wanted to ask about is you said for many years, most of my life, in fact, I was in a heaviness. I was in a place of heaviness, sadness, and unhappy. I always felt as though something was missing, though if I were asked, I couldn't tell you what it was that I felt was missing. I think that's a place where a lot of women and probably men too. So why were you in that place, do you think?
I think as I've done my work over the past few years, my healing work within self, as I think back, I feel some of the realizations were that this started when I was quite young. The things
Mm-hmm.
that I've seen, the things that I experienced myself firsthand personally, and as well as seeing others go through conditioning. It was what
Yeah,
was modeled. It was what I saw. It was what I thought was normal because I didn't see much of anything else. And
right,
I can only say so much about my mother because she's not here and she has her own story. But seeing what she was going through and what she was living for up until I was maybe 13, 14 years old, when a very healthy, wholesome, for lack of a word, man in so many ways came along. And he actually took me and my siblings as his own and gave us that healthy home,
mm,
that healthy
nice,
fatherly parental figure. And
yeah,
it was only then I started to see things a little differently. But then again, back then, things also happened behind closed doors and out of the view of others. And by
right,
then, it was also already conditioned in me that some things we
right,
don't speak about, we're not supposed to at all. And
right.
nobody's going to be there to help you was so ingrained in me already. So I stayed
Mm-hmm.
stuck and frozen in that place. I didn't know how to
Yeah,
move forward. And as I mentioned in the book, if I was asked what was missing, I lacked hugely the words to even begin to try to say, this is
yeah,
what's going on. I
yeah.
didn't know how to.
Right, right. So in part of the book that you in part of your book you talk about an uncle that you had that was having some issues of his own, and he was quite abusive. He was physically abusive, and you felt that from what I got from when I read your story, you felt that he almost had a vision on you, but that wasn't true, or it
Mhm.
was partially true
Um,
in terms of solely choosing you as his victim.
I sometimes had wondered throughout the years too, such things. Why me? Why was I chosen to be victimized and abused by him?
Yeah,
I hugely saw myself as a victim for many years. I felt very sorry for myself, and I used to stir my pity pot every day, day in, day out. Why me? Why me? But as I think back now, and again, through all that I've been through, the work that I've done, the huge realizations that I've had along the way, I think back, and again, mentioning my mother just very slightly, my mother was not always often around in my early
mm-hmm.
years. And I spent time with aunties who were caring for me at times, or sometimes I was left in the care of this particular uncle.
Mm-hmm.
My mother, my family had entrusted him with my care and to be my protector and so on and so forth while they weren't there. But he did the complete opposite. And to me, it was, well, there's nobody around to see what I'm doing to her, and I'm going to instill fear in her, so she's not going to speak. And he did that quite well because I never spoke on it for many years. And I believed that I wasn't supposed to. And I also feared that my mother or my sister could be hurt as well.
Wow, yeah. And so when you were saying that as you got older you realized that of course he had his own demons he was dealing with from his childhood.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
that's the way I see it too now. Maybe he didn't know any better. Um, I feel, I don't know for sure, I can't say for sure, but I feel that
No.
he was probably hurt physically throughout
Yes.
his
Yes.
childhood. He didn't know
Yes.
any other way. It's not to say that that's okay in any way, shape, or form at all,
Right.
but this is the way I like to look at it. And this is what has helped me through, is what happened to him to make him into that person.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
happened to him to make him feel and believe that this is okay and this is how we deal with anger or whatever he may have had going on.
Yes. Yes.
And in all honesty, I feel for him. I
Yeah.
know he still struggles today. I love him. He is my family. He is my uncle. I do care
Yeah.
about his well-being. I have been
Yeah.
able to forgive, but it doesn't mean that you're allowed back in my space. Of course, I'm still going to have trust issues and such,
Of
right?
course.
I
Of
still hold some
course.
fear, and I might always.
Yes.
It's part
Oh.
of what happened to me for a long span of
Mhm.
time, and it's what has shaped my life. And I've had to learn to work with that. And part of working with that was being able to say, you know, I understand where you're coming from too, what may have happened to you, but I can forgive you so that I can move on in my life and you can too.
Absolutely.
But it doesn't mean that it's okay or that it's
Yeah.
completely forgotten and that the trust is there, because it's not.
Yeah. That's such a, Colinda, that's such a big thing in, as we grow older, and realizing that without the forgiveness, it just eats away at us. We're the
Yes.
ones who are suffering, not necessarily the person who did whatever they did, but we are the ones that are suffering. And I've learned that in my life as well, is that forgiveness is so important. It's like just a release. And as you,
Yes.
yeah, and as you said, you're not, you're not, it doesn't, it's not condoning what that person did, but it's just releasing yourself from, I guess, the chain, the guilt, the shame, all of the stuff that comes along with it.
Yes, and as I mentioned in the book too, I used to wish for that magic person who had all the answers and all the protection and safety to change my life, or that magic wand, the
Yeah.
invisible magic wand that doesn't exist. And I had to really learn. I had to really learn to accept as well, and to understand fully that the only person that can change my life, the only person that has any power or control over where I am, whether I stay stuck there or I start to find the ways to move forward, is myself. Of course, we all
Yeah.
need the help, the support, the resources, somebody to help guide and direct us in those beginning stages of your healing journey.
Yes.
But yeah, that was huge for me. I used to blame people too. It's your fault this happened. You weren't there. If you were
Yeah.
there, or if this had taken place when I was a child, things would have been different. But if I
Right.
continued to carry that too throughout life, who knows how things would
Oh,
be right now. I may still be
yes.
stuck in those places, as well as the
Yeah.
alcoholism.
Yes, yes. Oh, absolutely. And so do you think that alcoholism was like, what do you think that was about? Was it something that, like, I know that you said that your mom and your grandmother both had some issues with alcohol, but they did, thank goodness, were able to get some treatment for that. But what do you think that was? Do you think that's something that you just see, that's how you deal with things, or did you find you needed that just to numb yourself to be able to get through a day? What was that like for you?
It was all of that.
Was it?
Well, I saw throughout my life, I suppose, adults, relatives, friends of the family and such, when things were off, when they couldn't cope with something, it was, I need a drink, and they'd have that drink, and seeing that, ooh, that drink does something for them. They were just really upset. And then shortly after, as they're sitting there and engaging in their drinking, they
Yeah.
seem to calm down, they seem to relax. So I guess I took that as also, okay, so when things are off and things are too much for me, if I have that drink, that's going to do the same thing. It's going to have the same effect and help to bring me to a good space and
Yeah.
let go of some of what I'm carrying. You know
Yeah.
what's funny? My mother, when I was a child, used to tell me I never bothered with drugs. I
Yeah.
never dealt with addiction except to alcohol. That's an addiction too.
Yes.
I experimented with marijuana, but I didn't like it. And anything else I would never touch, because my mother always told me the first time you try a drug, it could kill you. So I was afraid. And I told her a few times throughout the years since I've been sober, why didn't you tell me that about alcohol? If you told me that, maybe I would have never ever touched it either. I guess
Yeah.
I had to go through that and learn something now.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, that's to be fearful, especially in this day and age of what we're dealing with in our country. Uh, People should be fearful. Yeah. And so I wanted to ask you another thing in here about this, and you said that often in your younger years when you were doing well, that people like me, Indigenous, weren't supposed to succeed. So how was that? Well, like, who was giving you that message that you weren't supposed to succeed? Was it society, or was it the community you lived in? Where was that message coming from?
It was community, it was society, and it was within my own family as well. I think they believed that about themselves. They were so conditioned into that again with the residential schools,
Right,
colonization, and such.
right.
And a lot of different behaviors, patterns, cycles came down through the generations with all of that coming into play within Indigenous people and how we were oppressed.
Yeah,
And so and it still happens today, where within our own families, those who should be supporting, empowering, and uplifting one another, being there for each other as family members, especially, are often the ones that are oppressing and suppressing their loved ones because they
right.
still carry that conditioning and those types of mindsets. And they don't
Yes,
realize, they're not consciously aware of how damaging that actually is and how much
yeah,
that holds a lot of us back.
yes, yeah, yeah. Yeah, when I read that, it really made me think, like, it made me want to ask you about it. That's how much I was thinking about it. But yeah, it would be certainly hard to lift yourself up and succeed when you're not expected to.
Yeah. And, like
Yeah,
nowadays, I'm sure you see it. And us Indigenous people in Canada, we're right across the country. You're going to see
yeah,
us in every town and province. But the
yes,
way things were back then, 20, 30 years ago when I was younger,
yeah,
it has changed hugely. It's so nice to
hmm,
see Indigenous
yes,
people being a part of the mix fully and completely. We are accepted now, and
yes,
everybody that's stepping forward with their talents, their gifts, and such. It's just, I never thought I'd see it in my lifetime, but here it is now today.
yeah, yeah. It
I
is
love
wonderful. It's
it.
wonderful
Is
to see. Yeah,
amazing to see not just Indigenous, but everybody working
yeah,
together and coming together.
yeah. Can I ask you? I thought it was almost, well, interesting, because when you decided uh, that you needed to stop drinking, you went for treatment, and it ended up being the same treatment center that your mom had gone to and that your grandmother had gone to.
Yes. I had actually gone to two treatment centers before that, when
Yeah.
I was 19 and then again in my mid 20s, and
Uh,
neither of them helped. And I wasn't going looking to sober up. I was looking for escapes from the community, and
uh,
it was covered through the health center and such. So I took that route. But when I was really truly ready, I had learned of this place here in Edmonton, and that they have cultural aspects to their program, Indigenous cultural
yeah.
aspects, which
Yeah.
include ceremony, a daily smudging ceremony first thing in the morning. And when you end your day at night, that's part of it. We had Indigenous elders teaching us spirituality and our traditional ways. And knowing that this is where my grandmother went when I think I was 4 or 5 years old to achieve sobriety.
Yeah.
And then after that, when I was a little bit older, she returned there to take a training program within alcohol and addictions to become a counselor.
Wow.
And it changed her life hugely. And she stayed on that road. As far as I know, she never had a
Wow.
relapse. And then my mother followed suit when I was 7 years old. She attended the same treatment center, and same thing. She didn't relapse or anything either. So seeing that
Wow.
place helped them in such ways, and wondering, was it a part of our culture and spirituality as well, our traditional ways that helped them on that
Yes.
path and to help them to stay sober
Yeah.
on that red road, as it's often referred to to not relapse. And so I thought, I see them almost as my superheroes and how much they've changed hugely. They started the cycles to break the past patterns and traumas. And
Yeah.
I wanted to follow their footsteps. So I chose to go there. And I wanted to be in the same building of the halls and the rooms that my grandmother had walked in when she was alive as
Oh,
well.
wow. That's just amazing. And I can see, I'm not Indigenous, of course, but I can certainly understand how having your elders and learning about your culture and embracing it is so important.
Yes, and it's often not understood, or people don't seem to even think of. I notice in some places it is being put out there now that oftentimes when we deal with trauma, there's also a loss of connection. It's not always understood that that loss of connection is within the self. That is
Right.
huge, but it's also the disconnection from communities, from our elders, from our lands, from our spirituality,
Yeah. Yeah.
the connection with nature, natural law, I like to call
Yeah.
it. Finding all of that again was so huge for me. It
Oh,
truly started to put things back together, and being a part of ceremony
yeah.
and connecting with that spirituality.
Yeah.
There's always
Yeah.
been spirituality in my life. It's been a part of my life since I was quite young, and I've shared that with you in the past. But finding that connection again, and in a sense, a connection to my grandmother, even though she was long gone,
Yeah.
was so huge in so many ways.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
without that reconnection, the smudging practices and the ceremonies of things such as the sweat lodge, I don't know if I would have made it through that first year.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing. And it's I'm just happy to hear that they've, finally we're embracing, things in the world instead of thinking that they're not worth anything or whatever they were thinking, right? I just it's yeah, it's good. It's
Mhm.
very good. And I'm very glad to hear it. And that goes with your title, Returning to My Indigenous Culture Healed My Heart.
And
I
it
mean,
truly did in so
wow.
many ways and so many
Wow.
levels, gave me huge understandings, and
Yeah.
also brought me to a place of wanting to understand more about myself,
Yeah.
and then wanting to help. Started with just my people was my thing. I used to say,
Yeah.
when I get to where I'm trying to go with all of this, I
Yeah.
want to go back to my own backyard and share this because it's needed there.
Yes.
And the way I look at it now, it's not just Indigenous ways. These ways were meant for everybody, which is
Yes.
why I like to call it universal law. It was
Ah,
meant for the collective whole, not just
yeah.
us. So
Yeah.
I'll share with anybody who asks in any way, shape, or
Oh.
form. Yes, this
Oh.
is the way we do things traditionally. But
Yes.
yes, come and join, be a part. I love when people ask, and I often have friends reaching out, messaging, and telling me that they learned either Indigenous art, such as beading, or they just learned about the sacred medicines, or they took part in the ceremony,
Oh, that's
and how
beautiful.
amazed they were, the things that it did for them spiritually
Yeah.
and emotionally.
Yes.
I'm just so proud
Yes.
of that, to see things like
Yes.
that connecting.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's wonderful. If I ever get to Alberta, I'd love it. If I ever did, I'd love
Oh, you
it.
let me know if you ever come this way. I'll find somewhere for us to go, something to do.
That'd be great. Um, so in on page 90, you say, which I love this, you say, I see my experiences, both good and heavy ones too, now as gifts. I can see the bigger, deeper picture that most wouldn't see or understand of why I went through all I did with a purpose. Wow. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. And I think I mentioned in the book some of the things that helped me as well were books by various authors, and I named them.
Yes.
And one of them was Colin Tipping. He has passed away the past few years of cancer, but he wrote a book called Radical Forgiveness. And he speaks of and shares of everything on a deeper spiritual level,
Yeah.
seeing beyond the situation or experience at hand, but what's going on here that is unseen, unheard, where I should be learning from this possibly. This could be a blessing in disguise, but how is that? So reading that book, the first few chapters touched me in huge ways. And I was reflecting back on situations from my own life and seeing it in the ways that he describes and explains. And it was just mind blowing. I felt a shift as I read that book. I thought,
Wow.
wow, I get it now. And
Yeah.
looking back on many situations throughout life for myself and also at my older children, family members, even, I was getting so excited. I was reflecting on many difficult and heavy things. And I thought, from what happened there and then what took place afterward. And I'm a huge believer that our mindsets create our world. What we
Yes.
believe, what we perceive is what we are going to meet and
Yeah.
what we are going to experience. And as I got that understanding, seeing how my life used to be and where I was, not just in my mindset, but what I was thinking, what I was feeling, the energy I was putting out there was quite heavy. And the universe does not discriminate between good and bad, heavy,
Right.
not heavy. It's just, this is where our
Right.
focuses are often, and that's what we meet, because it's what, the way I see it, I know some people would not agree,
Yeah.
but what we
Yeah.
are looking for is what we often tend to find is so true. I used to
Yeah.
not believe that when people would mention that to me, and I'm like, I get it. That's
Oh no,
exactly the energy I was putting out.
I believe it. I believe it with all my heart. That absolutely, absolutely. It's and I can just even see it in you as well. And like as you're talking, I'm thinking, you know, if you're down and feeling in the victim mode and that kind of thing, you wouldn't be reading the kinds of books that you would be reading. You know, it's just things get drawn to us to help us.
You know,
Yeah,
besides the ceremony, culture, spirituality, and traditions that helped me the first year,
yeah.
I'm not sure if I made mention of him. I was thinking of this after the book had already gone out. Did I mention Dr. Wayne Dyer? I think I own all of his books too, just like I do
Oh,
Dr. Gabor Maté's.
I
But
don't remember if I know you gave me, there's in the book, you put a list of things that helped you, but I didn't remember seeing his name. You could
yeah,
have,
I
but I
think I
don't
totally
remember.
forgot him. And I thought,
Oh,
that man, his books, YouTube videos, podcasts, anything that I could find helped me look at things in a different light as well. And it
yeah,
helped me to change different behaviors and patterns. He would share a lot of content in his book as well as self-help tools. So I
yeah,
started to utilize such things. And he also mentions about how this is not going to happen in just a few days. You're going to have slip ups, you're going to fail at times, and you're going to be hard on yourself, but it's
yeah,
keeping in that routine
yeah.
of these new behaviors and patterns, doing these different things for
Mhm.
yourself, your self-help, your self-care, that
Yeah,
makes all the difference. And I used to get so frustrated. I'd be doing good for a few days and then something would happen and I'd instantly be hard on myself. But that's
yeah,
the way I see it, that's our ego and what it's so used to as being normal. All of a sudden, those
right.
things are missing now. So I feel like
Yeah,
the part of us that's trying to change and that ego part who wants to hold on to all of this old stuff that it knows is normal, kind
yeah,
of battle within yourself, right? And
yeah,
I'm like, okay, I got to keep going through this. There's nothing
yeah,
wrong here. It's
yeah.
just a process I'm going through.
Wow.
And knowing that I'm doing the best with what I have, with what I know how.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
yes, it takes time to change patterns, behaviors,
yeah,
mindsets. And oh my gosh, I thought I'd never do it, but here I am today. I often share
yeah.
with others of how I managed to achieve that. But yes, he played an important role with many things that first year.
Yes. Wow. As you're talking, I'm just, sitting here watching and listening to you, and I thought, I'm going to get teary-eyed. I'm not. Just how you're going to be able to pass your positivity, your strength, your wisdom. You're very wise. As you're the whole time you're talking, I'm thinking this is one wise lady, but you're going to be able to pass that on to your boys, and they're going to be wise men, and they're going to pass that to their kids. It's just I just love seeing the whole healing generation, how it flows down. I know for myself, I healed, my boys are doing better, and now because I've got some grandkids, I know they're going to be okay. Everybody's better than when I grew up. And I can hear that in you, and I just was visualizing your kids and what a fabulous thing because your healing is not just for you. Yeah.
I've heard a term said pertaining to women. As us women heal ourselves, we help to heal the woman that came before us and the women that are yet to come. But the way I see it, it's not just women. For me, it's my boys. I'm healing myself. For yes, a lot of the women that came before me.
Yeah.
But first and foremost, I began, and I share some in the book. It began with my children. My oldest son had a huge role in me deciding to change my life, and then being the mother of 2 little boys with special needs.
Yeah. Yeah. Aw.
And
Well,
when I see them, that's my reward. I see it.
yeah.
I see the men they have become. They
Yeah.
are now the husbands, the fathers that I didn't have and used to believe only
Oh,
listed in books. And now I see
oh,
them being those partners and
yeah.
spouses to the women that they live with and
Yeah.
have amazing relationships with. I see even my 15-year-old, the way he speaks and the questions he asks and the things that he does for his own self-care.
Yeah.
I've asked at times, well, where did you learn that from? Well, you've been doing this stuff now for years, Mom. I saw you.
Oh,
And I feel so proud. And I feel like, you know what?
oh,
I did it. If I don't accomplish
oh,
anything else in life, I raised amazing men. And that was my
oh,
goal.
wow. Well, good job. And oh, oh, you're just an amazing lady, and I mean that from with all my heart. And you've written a beautiful story, and yeah, just lovely. And I appreciate you writing. I appreciate you being willing to do this with me today. So everybody, buy this book so that you can read Colinda's story. Okay, so she's in number 7. And again, I have to do this because if I do this, uh-oh, where'd you go? Well, there you are. Okay, returning to my Indigenous culture healed my heart. So she's in chapter 7, starts on page 69. So I hope you'll all take the time to read it. And aren't you going to be speaking somewhere in the next little while?
Yes, I was just talking on the phone today about that. My bio and pictures have still not gone out, which will be done probably within the next couple of days. And so I haven't really shared it too much,
Yeah.
but maybe tomorrow.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's my first time that I get to speak on a book. Well, it's the first time I've written for a book, so that's going to be quite interesting. I'm really excited. And this is taking place in the community where some of what I share in that book had taken place. So it's where I grew up, where a lot of my family is. So it's going to be interesting. It's nerve-wracking, but at the same time, you know, that's part of my goal. When I got to where I was going with everything, I wanted to take it home. So that's a step of taking it home to my own backyard as well.
Wow. Well, I'm saying best of luck to you, but I don't really think that you need it. I think you're going to be just fine. Wow. Well, good for you. Good for you. I'm just I don't even know what to say. I'm just so happy for you. So, well, thank you again for doing this and for writing in the book, and for giving us all of your wisdom and being so open about your story. I know it's difficult to do, and now you're going to go talk on a stage.
Yeah.
To,
oh my gosh.
in your community where people know you and are related to you. So you are a brave lady, very, very brave. But I'm sure it's going to be fine. You're going to be fabulous, I'm sure.
I have to say as well, Julie, thank you. I'm sure you don't see how much you do. You're always so busy, but you've given, again, there's the word, woman like me, all over the place, such a huge opportunity. And without you, I may not have had that belief in myself that I could even take such a step, and for your support and guidance all along the way. And I want to encourage other women out there, get in contact with Julie. She's amazing. Even if it's scary, she'll help you through those first steps. And you could be doing this too and taking that first step towards your own healing journey.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. And also, just to let everybody know that in the description of the video, there's going to be Colinda's bio will be there, And there'll be a few links if anybody wants to get in touch with her to talk to her about her story, or getting her speaking on your stage, or whatever you need her for. So we'll have that there as well. So again, Colinda, thank you so much. And I really appreciate you doing this. And I wish you all the best of success. You deserve it.
Julie,
Take care.
you as well.
Bye.